let's jump into some of the controversy. So one of the first things I want to talk about here is just the general controversy that's been going on around the Crab 19 and what's going on. So maybe you guys have seen this. Maybe you guys have seen this fake news about Joe Rogan, and they're calling Joe Rogan a menace to public health for spreading misinformation. They're saying he's creating these mass misinformation events. That's what they're calling them now. And they're saying that because of that, because he's spreading these mass, misinformation events, he needs to be deplatformed, needs to be taken down. Look there's 270 people who call him out. Well, I'm sure there's just as many people that are willing to back him up. And especially given what Dr. Malone has talked about and the networks that are opposing all these things, I'm sure there's lots of healthcare professionals that are backing up Joe, or at least that are open to discourse. And this is what's always made me laugh about Joe Rogan, is that regardless of how you feel about Joe Rogan, you may not watch Joe Rogan all the time, right? I don't watch Joe Rogan all the time. I only watch Joe Rogan. Same goes for Tim Pool, by the way. I only watch them when they have really good guests that give really good interviews. I'm not there to watch them every single day. I'm not a religious listener to their shows. They're very long. The content is very long. I have a lot of shit to do, including work, real work to do. And I can't spend all day listening to very, very long podcasts if they're not relevant. If it's just some random comedian or some random dude I don't care about, like, really, I'm sorry, even if it's easy to listen to, it's not something that I'm going to listen to. I'm looking for very pertinent information that's actionable and can give me good advice that I can pass on to you guys and help you guys make better decisions, be more self-sufficient, and be more independent, and make good choices in your lives. Be your own judge. Now, with Joe Rogan, sometimes he has great podcasts. The one with Dr. Malone was fantastic. But people are really hating on him. And one thing that made me think about this in context of Australia, in the context of Djokovic, is this guy here, this Australian journalist, Josh Zepps. So he essentially labels Tim Pool as an alt-right troll for his stance against Australia's forced segregations and citizens, so the quarantine camps. So listen, I'm going to listen. I listened to it previously. That's why it's watch again here. But I want you guys to listen up to what this guy has to say. And I want to hear what you guys think about this. I want to hear what you guys think about what he has to say in the discourse. And I'll give you my 2.5 cents on this. But let's just listen up and see what this Aussie has to say about Tim Pool, about generally the discourse around Australia and Crab 19.
For me, I mean, my concern is what I've been agitating for, and what's made it a lot harder is the conversation here in the States from people like Tim Pool and people like that, who it's sort of like, like if you had a buddy who you thought was a bit too strict with their kid or something, where like, you just sort of wanted to change his behavior in a certain way, and you were like, I think I can do this. I think I know how to talk to this person. I think the best solution is a collaboration with them. And then another buddy of yours goes, no, you have to say that your buddy is a child abuser. And until you admit that he's a child abuser, I'm not even going to have a conversation about this because your buddy is a child abuser. Let's insist. You'd be like, hang on.
What comparison is this?
This is what it feels like when Americans come and try to save the conversation that Australians are having with each other about these policies. So like, it's become a lot harder for people like me to go, let's look at the human rights trade-offs. Let's look at the health trade-offs. Let's try to assess what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. When you've got all this chatter coming from some of these alt-right people who are saying, like, literally,
well,
Jamie,
Tim Pool's not alt-right. And Majid is not alt-right either.
No,
neither one of those guys are alt-right.
No,
that's an unfair assessment.
I'm not saying Majid.
Okay, but you're using that pejorative to dismiss what they're saying.
Well,
like they might get really into these conspiracies, and you look at it on paper without the whole breadth of knowledge from the community, and you find out that these people are being relocated, and you do see those, whatever you want to call them, camps, communities where the people have to stay on their porch. It's concerning to someone who lives in America. You would understand how you would think of Australia as being this wild, free place.
Yeah, totally.
And then you see that and you go, oh my God, they're reverting back to the way they were.
What the difference is that there are some people, and I sort of give Margaret a pass on this because I know him well enough to sort of think that he must just be sort of, not doing enough fact checking. But there are some other people like Tim who I feel like I've I and people like Claire Lehman at Quillette, who's the editor of Quillette, have done a lot of work, like pointing out the facts, and then it doesn't go anywhere. It's like unless you call them concentration camps and accept that Australia is on a path to become a fascist authoritarian dictatorship, there's nothing to even talk about.
Well, I don't think he's having conversations with anybody who's actually in Australia, unfortunately.
Well, I've invited him on my podcast and he doesn't come on. Like he and I have exchanged, terse words on Twitter where I'm like, mate, you're not helping. And he's like, it's a concentration camp. That's just that you don't admit it. So it's more the tone of
That's his voice on Twitter.
That's his voice on Twitter.
You know what I
So that was the clip there. I wanted you guys to see that and let me know what you think about that. So guys, what do you think about that take? Do you think that that's a good take? Do you think that that's a bad take? What do you guys think about that? I mean, I do agree with Mike here. It's laughable for someone to call Tim Pool alt-right. Like Tim Pool is not alt-right at all. That's factual. Like he's definitely not alt-right. This term is way too often thrown out there. It's like Yahtzee, like calling somebody a Yahtzee. That word is just way too overused. But I do see different points here, and I want to have a preliminary discussion here because part of this is complete bullshit, and then part of this I understand. So let me call it the bullshit first. First of all, I think it's totally all right. Look, if somebody is doing something, he says, oh, if your friend's disciplining your kid and you don't like the way they're doing it, it's not that. It's like if you see your friend drop kick his kid and then throw him into the street with oncoming traffic. It's like at some point you need to start yelling. At some point, hey mate, let's have a conversation about this isn't enough. So there are points where you do need to get mad, and it's righteous indignation. It is, you need to get mad for the things that are important. You need to get worked up for the things that are important because they are fundamental to our existence as humans and our rights under the law, whether that's the law of Australia or the law of the United States. And we understand that, hey, the countries are different. People have different expectations. We have a higher expectation of liberty in the United States. That's facts. I mean, if you've traveled abroad, you can understand that our expectations for freedom and for liberty are much higher in the United States. Okay, that's a given. But at the same time, as people who stand for that and have stood for that historically, at least some of us in the United States still stand for that. I mean, I can say the people in the chat here, you guys stand for that. And by the way, if you stand for freedom and liberty, ding that like button, smash it for freedom and liberty around the world. And as people who are advocating for that, as the one thing we can advocate for, if we're going to advocate for freedom, we're going to liberty, rights, due process, you should call out what's going on in Australia. What's going on in Australia is wrong. It's wrong. And I could pull up the videos, which I have in other times, of people getting arrested arbitrarily. We have 14-year-old girls getting arrested, grandmothers getting arrested. People are getting arrested. But that doesn't mean you get to call, somebody alt-right for criticizing that. And I like what NL said here. The term alt-right is being used as someone I dislike, which is not accurate.